Hello and welcome back, I guess, to my video breakdown series of my songs. If I'm doing this, then at least one person liked my video I did about Separate Ways. So yeah, this is Sticks and Stones as promised. I thought I'll quickly get into it with just talking about how I wrote the song and kind of some of the decisions and stories behind that. So if I just start playing it off, I can talk a little bit about it. As always, this song started off with guitar and lyrics, and I just really wasn't happy with it. I kind of tried a million versions of it, and I eventually just put it in the drawer, put it to bed, and thought nothing of it, and forgot about it for a while. And then some friends of mine got in touch with me. They run and work at Burfield Recording Studios in Reading, and they said, we have this artist that was Daisy, that they were working with, and they wanted to put us in touch, kind of put us in a room and see what happened. And I immediately thought of this song because I think, even though I hadn't realised it when writing it, it was very much a two-way, meant to be a two-way conversation kind of song. I hadn't intentionally written it as a duet, but as soon as they said that, I immediately thought of this song and thought, you know, let's dig that one out, see if I can come up with anything. And that was when this piano came about. This was kind of the first thing that happened of this iteration of the song. It was a plugin from Sonic Academy, Anna 2, the synthesizer. And I think it was, as I've written here, it was just a preset called Baby Piano that I opened up and started tweaking with. And that's kind of one of two workflows I really have. I either start off with a preset, and that's very much when I'm just trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, generally being a bit more creative, not really worrying too much about the specifics of a sound because I know I can come back later to them. I'm just really trying to get off a kind of starting point, and that was what this was. These pads, however, the other side of that, where I sometimes will do like a sound design day. And that's kind of my two workflows. I'll either be just as quick as possible, just instinct reaction to everything. Like, yes, do I like that sound? No, do I dislike that sound? Or I'll sit there with no intention of using anything I'm creating, like these pad patches. And I just hope that at some point down the road, something comes out of it. In this case, this was just meant to be just kind of wavy, along with this flute patch that I quite like. And that just comes, like I say, from me messing about, whether it's Massive or the Anna 2 one, or with VCV Rack, the modular emulator. Layering all those together kind of shows the two workflows coming together. One was a very instinctual thing, one was me messing about with something, not even intending to use it for this song, but then coming back to that patch when I was making this song and thinking, this was the most appropriate one for the job. Also, I've got these reverse swells. Let's quickly mention them. This is a really common trick. Just quick little keyboard stab, drench it in reverb, and then reverse it. So I've got a couple of different tones and a couple of different notes there that I've just ordered. And that's really kind of through trial and error, and then a little bit of reverb on it there. And that's just so it doesn't cut out quite as jarringly, but it's only about a 50% wet effect. So a lot of the time, generally, as you can see down here, reverbs I do on sends, but when it's something like this, it's one sound, then I just whack it on that and use the wet dry knob. Drums are the next kind of natural big thing that happened in this song, and I guess it starts with this. This was originally a stock sequencer, just emulating a 909, I think. That's what it sounded like originally, and I just I had that as a guide to record to for the recording session, and ended up really liking it, feeling like something was missing in the verses, and putting it back in later on. And I just put a bit of a filter, high and low cutoff on it, and then crushing it with the Devil Lock. So here's before. That's just the filter on. And then the Devil Lock brings it out again. And the same, you could probably hear a little bit of a delay on that. I've done that on this as well. This is then the beat of just the kick and snare. Just the beat I wanted for the verses. Like that. Layered with a kind of cinematic snare and kick. And together they create a really... This one has a lot more of the attack. This one has a lot more of the sustain and release and the room sound to it. The hi-hat as well. I should say all of this, I've bounced them down into individual tracks. I probably mentioned something about this when I was talking about separate ways. A lot of the time I find it really just creatively beneficial for me to just commit to whatever I'm doing. Even if later on I think I've ruined it there, I can always go back. But for me, just creatively committing to it, saying this is a decision, this is a sound I want to go to, really helps. I mean, there's so many people that have talked about that being beneficial. Some people hate it. Personally, it works for me. And then there's this white beat as well before I mention the hi-hats, because that's kind of the cool thing, I guess. The white beats are just really simple. That's literally all I've done in there is slide a piece of paper across the desk, record it, compress it, whack a bit of reverb on it. And then on this track here, I've arranged it into a pattern just using the shuffle. Like I say, the hi-hats, I really like the sound of these. They're very machine gunny, kind of almost a bit trappy, EDM-y. You know, there's a real randomness to that. And that's because I created 6 sequences in the sequencer. And then rolled a dice to, I assigned them numbers 1 to 6, and then rolled a dice, and then whichever number it was, that was the pattern I put in for that bar, and it just created this random sequence, and I really like the effect it came out with. It all sounds cohesive because it wasn't that the placement of the hi-hats were random, it was all sequences that I'd chosen and I thought fitted. It was just which sequence happened when. That was what was random. So if I just play a bit of that, and then I got one hard left, well, relatively hard left, and one slightly right. And I guess the thing, I think I've still got the patterns down here. Yeah, there you go. And then I just bounce them out onto the hi-hat tracks. And last but not least, same with the keys, just some cymbals doing the reverse swells. Just like that, and like so. The bass, I will very quickly say, recording wise, nothing much going on here. It was just 1 amp and a DI. That's what it sounded like before, and then really heavily gated on the DI. On the amp, sorry. And then really heavily gated and distorted on the DI. There you go, so you can see that's there. And the part itself is really, I love it. It was played by my friend Howard. He plays bass on almost all of my stuff. He's just so good at giving a really simple part, but flaring it up just when it needs to be. So this is just accentuating the beat. But then over here, so most of it, it's not flashy, it's not whatever. And then over here, there's a lick in it, and it's just right where it needs to be. It puts in that kind of excitement and that, oh, well, you know. And it's probably one of my favorite things about the song is what he did on that. It just really puts in the excitement where it needs to be in my eyes. And bass is one of those things where if I play the song without it, it just sounds empty. So that's without the bass, and then that lead in here. You know, it's because it's a very low range instrument. You don't notice a lot of what it's playing, but it really makes all the difference when it's there. Then last thing on the bass, this is Moog Sub Fatty we had to play around with, and we just simple tone, simple sine wave. I think it was just messing around with the modulation on the cutoff and a couple of other things. There you go. And it's, you know, just got it growing and rising for each one. That was us manually playing the filter. Guitars, not a lot to say about guitars. I'll very quickly show this, but it was 2 parts. One played on the open chords, and then this part layered. Same relative chords, it's just higher up on the neck, being it's just being played higher up on the neck, and then together like that, and then it's fed to a bit of a slapback and a reverb. The lead part, so as I mentioned on the last video, I don't play violin properly, but this lead guitar was really lacking. So I tried to mess about with an ebow as well. And it helped a little bit, just doing that octave. But it was still missing something. So, I'll keep them soloed actually. So I played a violin part somehow, and on its own, it doesn't sound very good. But with the lead, it really fills it out. You know, and that helped because I was going for a very kind of aggressive, crunched, like a little bit of a grungy sound. I didn't want it to lose too much of the kind of core of it. At its core, it's still a singer-songwriter song. And so the violin kind of helped bring back a little bit of the kind of folky core, I guess. And then the same with the solo. I didn't layer the solo violin part loads. I just played it once, whereas these, you can see, I've kind of quadruple tracked them. And that kind of gives a really nice chorus effect, along with the guitar and the ebow being double tracked. I also whacked in another plucky bit. There you go. And that's just compressed and EQ'd. Vocals, I think, are the last thing I should really mention. I should kind of explain, there's a Bon Iver song called Creaks, and in that he plays this instrument that I think his engineer built for him based off of a harmonizer plugin. And the way it works is that you play a note on the keyboard, you sing through, and this thing Bon Iver plays is actually ending up altering the voice, if that makes sense. So you can play real time different notes, and I worked out a way with this Waves Tune plugin. You've got a little MIDI node there where you can control the target pitch. And so I hooked that up to the keyboard and ended up playing the harmony to the voice. And it took a while to mess around with the parameters, like the correction speed and the correction amount of the formant and so on. But when it's layered with the voice, I really love the effect you get. And, you know, it's nowhere near as clean and awesome sounding as the Bon Iver song, but it's an effect I love, and it just felt right for this. The voice as well, this track here, the reason it's different is because I ended up changing the words to the mid-late, and so I recorded it at home instead, whereas all these vocals recorded at my friend's studio. But then I had to make them sound cohesive because 2 different performances on 2 different days with 2 different mics. I just stick to stoned and drinking alone. So hopefully nobody notices that in the song, but that's why, if anybody did, they sound the tiniest bit different. But yeah, it just took a bit of tweaking to get that right. These harmonies as well, I'll quickly touch on. I've just automated. A lot of what's going on in the song is just down to automation. Like these harmonies, I've just had different bits stand out and so on. Different words needed to be a bit more prominent. And it's the same thing going on here with just the master bus of this harmony group. And this harmony group is, as the section progresses, each one takes slightly more precedence in the mix, and it just helps give a little bit of movement, along with my amped and auto-tuned wailing. And these are tremoloed as well, left to right, as you can probably see in there. Finally, but not least, I've got this little notes here. And this was just taking samples of the rough vocals. This is also in the demo stages. So a lot of rough vocals, that's why I've just whacked this plugin on. If I show you this beforehand. So let's put the auto-tune and EQ, then this is messing about with the formant in the pitch and mixed halfway, so it's got a little bit of both signals. Amped up, roto speaker, delay, and yet again the little plate. And then with this one I've just got it so a couple of the notes I've programmed to be allowed by the auto-tune. It will snap anything that's not those notes to those notes. And just in the intro, that's a little rhythmic part. Like so. I think that's pretty much the song covered. I don't think there's anything else of any significance or importance to talking about. Most of it was fairly simple mixing. Most of this song is about the decisions I made going into it, like Separate Ways. It's all in the layering and all in the what sound's going where and what sound will complement X, Y, Z. But hope you found this interesting, and I guess the next video I'll do, if this gets, again, even one like, the next video I'll do is the title track off my EP, Everything I Need to Say. So thanks very much, subscribe and drop a follow to my Instagram. This is Luke Lucas. See you in the next one.